it's Ashley Gattuso with Curated and Opt-in Weekly. I am doing something special next week. I'm going on spring break. And that means I needed someone to substitute for me and actually put together next week's Opt-in Weekly because I didn't want you guys to miss out. So we are working with a freelance writer at the right destination. Her name is Sarah Colley. Sarah, welcome to Opt-in Weekly.
Thank you. Happy to
Hey.
be here.
So Sarah and I have engaged a lot on LinkedIn, and she actually wrote an article about the ROI of content, which we're going to be including in today's Opt-in Weekly. And when I say today, I mean tomorrow, because we're recording this the day before tomorrow, but that will be Thursday, March whatever tomorrow is, 18th, because today is St. Patrick's Day. So welcome, Sarah. I want you to tell us just a little bit about yourself and the right destination and the freelance work that you do and who you write for.
Sure. So I started my career several years ago, about 7 years ago, copywriting in I started with PR agencies actually in South Florida. And then when I moved to Denver, I took a full-time content writing post with a granite and lumber company, and then worked kind of on the side with a bunch of agencies, and then just kind of slipped into agencies full time for a couple of years. And after that, once the pandemic hit, I kind of decided that agencies weren't my direction. They weren't kind of giving me the flexibility that I wanted, and I really wanted some actual clients of mine. And so I took the experience that I had of working with a lot of B2B tech companies and SaaS companies, and also a lot of construction companies, home improvement, architects, that kind of area, and really kind of struck out on my own. I have worked with a ton of different industries, so it really ranges with my client list, but yeah, I tend to stick to tech now.
Okay, cool. So SaaS marketers looking for freelancers. Sarah is a gem. All right, so we're excited to have you. We have Seth Morris here today, who is our in-house former greatest intern ever, or what was it, the world's best intern, who is now like full-time listen to me make requests about how to make videos and do different things. He handles success for Curated. So he and Sarah are going to put together next week's newsletter. We're going to demonstrate how we're getting that set up, and me teaching her how I do what I do, so she will be able to do it comfortably next week. Also, she'll have this video recording to look back at. So kind of without further ado, the first thing we would want to do is add her to the account. So I've got Seth screen sharing right now, and he's going to walk us through just adding someone to your Curated account and what kind of credentials you can give them.
Yeah, so to add Sarah as a user, we'll go up here to the settings gear icon and go to the users page here. And as you can see, we already have a few users here. And to invite a new one, we just click invite user. We'll drop their email here, and then we can choose the role that we want them to be. So we're gonna have Sarah as a contributor, which can do everything except publish issues, see the list of subscribers, manage other users, and access the publication settings. So I'll send an invitation email, and in a little bit, she should get an email in her inbox with an invitation to come set up a Curated account and get logged in here.
Excellent. Okay, so then the next thing we want to do, because Curated is, it's built on categories. And I love this as a content strategist because I can then get reports about which categories are performing differently. And so that helps me drive my decisions for what future content I want to produce. So Seth, if you'll show us through how categories are set up and get that open, then we can also add in a guest contributor category for her, so that when she is in the newsletter next week in charge of certain sections, people immediately realize, hey, this looks different. This is someone new. So take it away.
Yeah, so to set up different categories for your newsletter, we'll go back to the settings section up here, and we'll scroll down to categories under the issue content section here. Now you can see these are all the categories that Ashley's already set up for Opt-in Weekly. You can edit these, you can change the look and feel, or you can archive them if you're not going to use them in the future. But we'll set up a new category for Sarah, and we'll name it, what do you want to name it, Ashley?
Sarah Colley. And then like, can we do a dash? Guest curator.
And I spelled your last name right,
Yes.
Sarah? Okay,
Yes.
great. All right, so we'll save that. And if we scroll to the bottom here, we can see it right here. And we can edit the look and feel to get it set up to how it will look in the actual newsletter. So we'll set the header style to icon and title vertical. That's how you have yours set up, correct?
Oh, is
Ashley?
it? I thought it was a lozenge and icon.
Ooh, it might be.
I think it is.
Ooh, it is icon and lozenge.
Ooh,
You're right.
I knew it.
So we'll set it
I
to
just like
icon.
saying lozenge.
I know. I was thinking, man, they really picked that name.
Well, we have a British founder.
Oh,
okay. Apparently, that's what little rounded rectangle means.
Yeah.
Like a pill.
Like a lozenge.
Like a lozenge. But you have to say it like that.
And so we'll upload Sarah's icon. So we can go to, oops, wrong one. There we go. Open that. And then we'll set the icon width to be 100 so it doesn't take up too much of the page. And so now this is going to look similar to Ashley's icon as the prologue section of Opt-in Weekly, but it'll look different enough so they'll catch the eye of the reader and they'll notice, hey, this is a little bit different than normal. For lozenge color, we'll set it as, let's do a blue color. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think that'll pop. And then we just need to make sure that the text is super readable. So you might need to go a little darker blue even if it's white text on it. Yeah. Smurfy. I like it.
And we'll leave the text link and background color just normal so that the link color will still look the same as it does across the rest of the publication, and the text color is that dark color so it'll be readable.
Excellent.
Yeah, and now that we're done with this, we'll click save. And now that'll be ready to view in the issue when we're ready to preview it after we've built it out some more.
Perfect. Can you also show how to slide that up and tuck it under
absolutely.
prologue?
Yeah.
Here's how categories work, people. If you don't have content in a particular category that week, it just does not appear. So prologue will be taken out for next week's issue, but Sarah Colley, guest curator, will be in. So that'll be the first thing at the top of the newsletter. So what's fun about these categories is that after you've used them in the newsletter, like the email that's been sent, when the duplicate web page publishes, any changes you make here actually affect all existing web pages. So if I decided later on that I was getting traffic to my site and I did not have a prominent category near the top, but that had been getting a lot of readership, and suddenly publishing was way more important, or Money Matters was way more important to my readership, I could slide Money Matters closer to the top, and then that would be universal across the website. And so all of the content that had appeared in Money Matters would now be in that section of the page. So just kind of a little fun tip. So we've added her category, and then we want to show her how, if you don't mind, Seth, how to install the Chrome extension.
To install the Chrome extension, we'll need to find the curated Chrome extension in Google Chrome's extension library. So the easiest way to do that is just by Googling curated Chrome extension. It should be the first result that pops up. So open that up and click Add to Chrome. We'll click Add Extension, and then we'll be taken to a curated page that's asking us to enter our account API key. So to find our account API key, we'll need to scroll to the bottom of our account page. So we'll go back to our publication, click the profile dropdown here, open account, and scroll down to right here. So here's our API key. We'll highlight it, copy it, go back to this page, paste it in this box, and we'll save. And now the key's been updated and the publications have been refreshed. To have easy access to your Chrome extension, be sure to pin it to your toolbar up here by opening the extensions page and clicking the pin. And now the Chrome extension is set up and ready to use.
One thing I want to show is how to collect links. So I have set up Google alerts for different terms that are important to my readers, and I'm going to show you how to use the Chrome extension and to collect links in other ways in Curated. So what we do is once we have an article open and we think this might be interesting to use in the upcoming newsletter, which this one is about publishers in a post-cookie economy, and I think it will go in the publishing section, but it could likely swap over to the marketing if we wanted to. But I will just click my Chrome extension, choose the newsletter that I want it to go to. You will have just one, Opt-in Weekly, and collect the item. Once it appears here, any text that I've highlighted will be in the body copy. So I might go ahead and give that this little caret so that it'll be offset. And I want to put it in the publishing section, knowing that I might be moving it to the marketing section. So once I've saved that, it will appear in my collected items. It'll be here, and then it'll also be staged if I should want to put it in an issue. So the way to put things into the issue and import them is to click them over as add to issue. I usually have a lot of things waiting to be potentially added, so I don't use the import all, but some people who only collect 10 links in a week find that very easy to just click import all. And you'll notice that now, because it's in publishing, it has been placed at the bottom, I believe, yes, of all the content that I have put in for consideration in the publishing category, which this will be reduced down to just a list of top headline links for that particular section. Now, if you put something in and you decide that it doesn't belong in this newsletter, you can either remove it from the issue and that will send it back over to the items section, or you can use the trash can to completely destroy it. So this is my sandbox when I am creating an issue, is to get all the things I think could be interesting and look at how high that number is, because we recommend around 10. I think sometimes I end up with more like between 10 and 15 items once I reduce the publishing post down to just one item or one section with multiple links within it. But that's where we recommend. But what I tend to do is really move them up and down, figuring out what I think people will find most valuable, and then start either sending things back out of the issue or deleting them if I think, you know what, I'll never publish that. Other ways to collect links is to use something we call the secret email address that your account will have. You go to collected items, and then you click learn how, because this is telling you how to collect things. And you can scroll to collecting links via email, copy that email address, and then use that to save it into your email account and name it Opt-in Weekly. And then you can forward stories to that email address and they will appear in collected items also. Or you can, and that's great for the phone because you can just quickly send it from the phone. You can also go to new link here in collected items and add the link right here. And it works very much like Pinterest, like it then generates the title and you can give it a category. And you can also, when you collect them here, go ahead and say, I know it's going to be in this particular issue. So those are the ways to collect links. Now we'll start to talk about the content categories that we have built for Opt-in Weekly, and then how I sort of select what goes in each week and what your responsibilities will be. So Sarah, the sections of Opt-in Weekly that you'll be in charge of will be creating an intro that will replace my prologue with your guest curator spot. Typically, I write a narrative LinkedIn style story that I use the curated content from the rest of the issue to kind of pick out a theme and then address it in that introduction with a bit of a narrative lesson, and then a like, and now on to this issue kind of statement. Then we have screen share. I will already have a video picked out from an interview that I did with someone previously that you would just include here. Seth will help with the graphics, and then you can do a write-up of like the main point or key takeaway from that interview. Then we have a newsletter tips section, which includes usually somewhere between 2 and 5 story links. And some of those I will just send people straight to. Some of them I will do more of a like, hey, here's the most important point or quote from this piece. If people are interested in getting what I got out of it in my newsletter, great. If they want to click through and dive further in, that's also great. I've been introducing these roundups every once in a while. This is typically in the publishing section, but I tried it last week in the newsletter tips section because I had a lot of newsletter news last week that I wanted to include. So I ended up putting sublinks and like linking to one article, but then putting a series of stories from the past week that were very related to that. And those were more like newsletter news than newsletter tips. But what you will do when you put together the newsletter tips section is hold one thing back that would be a great actionable item to challenge the readers to take in the next week, and put that in the closing section, which is called opt-in challenge, and we'll get down to in just a moment. For marketing, I also include 2 to 5 stories. Sometimes I'll have 2 stories and then 2 like little related pieces. If there's not something that's related, no worries. I would rather not include content than to include something that I don't think is worth my readers' time. So when I curate for this section, I want to find things that will be super valuable to marketers. This had a high click-through last week because people are really curious about CMOs and how they spend on demand gen. So you'll pull together articles that seem to fit that profile and then pick the very best that you think the readers will enjoy and put your personal spin on it, however you want to add that in your commentary. Again, another section that doesn't always appear, we have 2 that kind of rotate in and out. That's curated, or no, it's curation and writing. And typically with content curation and writing, if there's not a great article about that came out in the last week or something that I came across, I just leave it out because again, I don't want to send people to something that is not meaningful to me or them. I do occasionally give a lot of text to something that really inspired me or prompted me to think differently about something. And so just use your judgment based on what you feel like will be really interesting to people to take away if they were just to read the newsletter versus if they were to click through. And I try to create a little bit of balance into some things that are just really quick and some that like I used like this piece to inspire my prologue last week. So it was obviously like impactful for me, and I hope is also important to others or like may help someone in some way. Then we have the publishing section. This is where I've been doing something a little bit different. I've been using a text item instead of a linked item and actually creating a list of headlines in publishing from the last week that seem to, in the order that I put them in, tell a bit of a story or give a snapshot of the last week in journalism and publishing. The Money Matters section is always about monetization with newsletters or big tech. And so we tend to include stories that newsletter creators will find really important to them. So this like lessons from attempting to buy a newsletter was perfect for my audience. Then Seth will be in charge of the curated news section. It will likely contain some information about Newsletter Fest, which is coming up April 12th through 16th and is our free event that we have going on, but he will always also include the link to our curated product roadmap and any product news that has been like any new releases that occurred within the last week, or like sometimes we'll have advice for people who might be new to the product or just not know about a particular way of using it. And then the opt-in challenge is, again, something usually from the newsletter tips section that I can turn into an actionable item. And then the signature, like this newsletter, we can have you and Seth adapt that to speak to the fact that you were the guest curator that week. We'll link to your profile, etc., so that anyone who wants to pursue you to do some writing for them can do so. So the way that looks in Curated is all the categories that you have imported links from will appear. If you didn't import a category, a link from a particular category, it will not be there, but they will already be in this order for you. And then you can move these around to put them in the order you want. So when I am selecting which of these 2 to 5 pieces to include, I tend to bump the ones I think would be most important to my reader or resonate most up top. And then I go, oh, you know what? This could be a related item under this article. And so I trying to condense that down to somewhere between 2 and 5 items, even sometimes 1 to 3. Because with curation, sometimes less is more. The reason people tune in or read it is because you've already done the hard work of deciding what's worth reading. And so the way to look at things is to just click in it, press go check out the content. If you did want to bring something in, you can just, let's see if there was a result that was interesting. I don't know. I don't want to copy something about Como's sex scandal. You would just copy and then paste in, and then add in formatting. Somehow I got rid of the I around this. And you can use the Markdown support to see how to add that little line if you want to make it a direct quote, and to put it in italics. So a couple of little quick things that we do like that to make it, when you save it, you'll see that the formatting now shows like this. So I move things around up and down. I revisit things. I figure out what's most important to my reader, and then I choose the content for that week. And each section is like this. Now, if you decided that this article, which it doesn't, but if you decided that it belongs in another section, it'll ask like, hey, this is going to be moved to newsletter tips. And you'll be like, oh, no, it's not. So I've got your article about content marketing ROI as one of the top pieces in the marketing section for this week. I think that's great to accompany that with the introduction of you as the guest curator for this week. And because I know that my marketing readers will genuinely enjoy that article. And then here's why I say, don't worry about this big number right here, right now. We try to get it down to, I end up usually with it somewhere between 10 and 15, but this will turn into 1, right? When all 12, once I go through these and decide which ones are worth keeping, when that's condensed down, that'll just be 1, and that'll turn that from 28 to a much smaller number. And let me see if there's anything else I can teach you. When a section is missing, like that text item at the end, the signature, you just add it in. So you can do content, body, change the footer, and then make it the signature.
You can also preview an issue to see how it's looking and how it will look when it's fully published by going to this blue button here and clicking either email preview or web preview. So let's look at what the web preview looks like for this issue. Here's Ashley's, and then I also just took a second and inserted what your speaker profile will look like at the top of the page for issue 25 that you'll be doing. So you can see this, here's your name, the title of the section, and then obviously you'll have filled out the text here, and here's what the rest of the email will look like. We'll have some images in there, but this is just a good way to check formatting, just to make sure things are looking like you want them to look. Like if you're doing Markdown and you want to make sure that you did it right, this will be a good way to see if you've done that right.